We're live. So first of all, a warm welcome to everybody joining the live stream tonight. Hope this finds you all well. And as you know, you can watch this here either on Periscope, you can watch it on YouTube, and you can watch it on Alt News Media Facebook. Do me a favor, if you're following me on Twitter, on Periscope, hop across on the links to Alt News Media, Facebook. If you're on Facebook, give it a follow. And if you can also give me a follow, subscribe to my YouTube channel, that'd be cool as well. So you're all very welcome. And hopefully Anne-Marie will be joining us very shortly. And so until that point, I'm just reading your comments, folks. Do you realize I actually got a troll? I managed to block a troll before the program even started. So it's remarkable. So can I, of course, ask you to do your normal routine? So if you like what you're saying, let me know. Leave a comment. I will read. I will try and share some of the best comments. Hi, Linda. Nice to see you. Hello to my Indian friend, and indeed my many Indian friends, Jed, and all of you gang. Thanks for being here tonight. So it's my pleasure to support Israel, by the way, Carl. I always have, and I see no reason to stop that at any point. Basically, you know something, I'm just wanting to check on just to see when Anne-Marie is going to be here. So you will just have to, there's a little bit of fiddly stuff going on here tech-wise. So let me just see if we can check where Anne-Marie is. So, okay. So someone says, you look handsome and your head is shining. Well, now, if you've got questions for Anne-Marie, by the way, or anything you want to say to Anne-Marie during the interview, then that's fine. Just let me know. She should. I'm told she's dialing in now. So hopefully, I will get to introduce her to you, and we can kick off then. I mean, we're going to have basically, of course, as per ever these days, we're going to really have to zone in on what's happening with the lockdown and with coronavirus. So that's what we need to do. But as I say, you're very welcome to ask questions and give me your feedback. Someone asked me a comment on just while we're waiting for Anne-Marie to join us. Someone says, "Is that your living room?" Hi, Angela, by the way. It's not my living room. I do have to say, it's my very busy. It's my new studio, which I've been building in these lockdown times. So let me just see if Anne-Marie is here yet. Okay, let me just check with you. So yeah, so I was going to say what I think. Someone said, what do I think of the new Labour leader, Sir Keir Forensic Starmer? I don't think very much of him. Oh, here's Anne-Marie. So I am going to just bring Anne-Marie into the stream now, and let me see if I can bring her up. And there she is. So Anne-Marie, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, Anne-Marie needs. Oh, hang on. The stream's acting a bit funny here, so we'll try that. Okay, so. Right, we have Anne-Marie, we have me. What we need is sound. So, see if I can get this one here. Just bear with me 1 second. Let me just check for you folks. Right. Let's see what I can do here. She's not mute. She's so. Okay, I can't hear Anne-Marie. Can Anne-Marie hear me?
Yeah.
Nope, you can.
I am, yeah.
It's fascinating because
I'm not muted. I can see my mute button.
Brilliant. Let me try something else here. Let me see. Hang on. No, that's one there. Right. So can I, a simple question, can you folks hear us both?
People are saying online that they
can't hear Anne-Marie. All right, bear with me 1 second, just 1 second. Okay. I can't hear her. Everyone can hear her but me. Don't know why that is. Right. And lo, he appeared back. Right. Let's see if this is any better. So it appears that everyone can hear you, Anne-Marie, but me, which is going to make things a tad difficult until I figure why I cannot hear you. So as you can tell, Anne-Marie, this is so polished. Absolutely no tech issues here.
I know.
However, if all my viewers can see Anne-Marie, I can hear Anne-Marie and see Anne-Marie. Perhaps, Anne-Marie, you would like to have just give them a brief introduction to how you're feeling about the lockdown at this point in time.
I want a haircut. That I know. I have a feeling, I work at home most of the time anyway, and I have a feeling that when people have to go back to work, they'll be wanting a day off and wishing they'd made more of it. But look, the economy is in crisis and we've got to get back to work. And I sympathize with Boris. None of this is easy, but he's got to step up a bit more. He's got to give us a bit more clarity on how we're getting out of this. I'm not sure he made the right decision in going into lockdown, but it's too late to talk about that now. But how am I feeling about it? I want it over. I really do. But it's the most remarkable thing of my lifetime, and I'm sure a lot of people's. So I'm worried more about the long-term economic effect. That's not getting any better. That picture's not getting any better. So it has to end. And now you're frozen.
Yeah.
Carl, I've denounced Nazis over and over and over again, Pet. And I denounce them now again. Thanks for asking.
Yeah. So my feed is frozen, so that's a pain in the backside. Totally frozen. So, okay. I'm gonna have to temporarily stop. I unmute my mic, and all of a sudden, can anyone hear me? Nope, frozen thing. God, so annoying. So can you folks hear me actually? Because this is remarkable. I appear frozen. I can't hear Anne-Marie. So this is the world's most challenging situation. I can't. I'm frozen. So ironically, Anne-Marie, you're coming across fine. I can see you perfectly. You're live. Everything's good. I seem frozen to me. I don't know if I'm alive. If viewers can see me or not, and I certainly cannot hear. I've got the old headphones in. Let me try a different way. What disaster this is. Oh, can't do this. Why is it not coming in? Is it because the sound is coming in here? Right, more technology. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Oh, my goodness. Have we a technical breakthrough?
Sound. We have sound.
We have sound. Yeah, I can. Yeah. Okay, well, we're getting there, Amber. God, we're getting there. I don't know why however, my own video thing seems frozen. Is it frozen to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't know why that's doing that. I'm just trying to see what other options I've got here, because it hasn't happened before. I don't know what we should do. What I think I might do is actually let me remove. And then. Oh.
It's okay, David. I'm entertaining myself with the questions.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah. What you might have to do. So, okay. So here's the deal. So since we can both hear each other perfectly, Anne-Marie, and I can see you moving, but I am frozen for reasons I don't understand. Here's what we'll do. We'll chat. Can you see all the different comments?
I can.
Oh, brilliant. Oh, great. So you can see what the people are saying. Okay. So someone actually, Anne-Marie, the comments are probably the best part of this experience for me because, well, apart from the odd lunatic who appears, of course.
Oh yeah, the odd lunatic. It's a string of lunatics. That's why it's so much fun.
Well, to be honest, Anne-Marie, I've been so busy trying to figure out how to get this thing to work. So I've not been able to see any comments. So I would casually point out to my viewers that I've not actually seen what you lot are saying. This is not an opportunity to have a go at anyone, though. And please, just a point of interest for anybody on my live stream, I expect courtesy to everybody. Otherwise, you vanish. Okay, so just as a point of interest. Now, Anne-Marie, let's kick this off.
David, I genuinely wouldn't make them vanish at all. This behaviour is absolute. This is I almost want to send the thank you card for this behaviour because it puts such a great big gap between the two groups. I would never behave like this. This is fantastic. It shows the level. So I'm perfectly happy to let it continue.
Okay, that's fine. I'm also aware of the fact that there's some genuinely good people who follow me who are keen, I think, to hang on, I see these comments.
I guess it's just it interferes with genuine people, doesn't it? Fair enough.
It is, because I mean, so this kind of grudge match these people seem to have. I mean, frankly, I'm not interested. I don't care about them. I don't care about debating Mark Collett. I don't care about any. It's all stupid and pointless. I'm very keen to chat to you, Anne-Marie, about. We talked a little while ago when I think the lockdown was quite young, and we chatted like then. And obviously, several weeks have gone by. So, what's your thoughts on lockdown at this point?
Well, I want it to be over. I really, really do. Not for me, because I'm fine with it. Other than not being able to get a haircut and bring my dog to the groomers. And I miss my branch meetings, but I work at home anyway. So it's a lot of some of my work I do at home. So it's not a big problem for me personally, but for the economy it is. And to me, we're at a point now where it's the economic consequences of this could be a bigger killer than the virus. And it's going to take us years to get out of this. And I don't see that the government is taking that seriously, really. I'm not hearing the government talk about the economy enough. I'm not hearing them say how we're going to get out of this economically. I saw a startling statistic today up here where I live, up in the northeast at Newcastle, is looking to lose 75% of its small businesses over this. 75%. I mean, this is, or at least 75% say they are at risk of losing their business. That's an extraordinary thing. And I don't hear the government talking about it. And the only sort of messages we seem to get out of the Treasury is we're giving away this much money, and that's great. But where's it coming from, and who's paying for it? I'll tell you who's going to pay for it. We're all going to pay for it, the taxpayer. When who should be paying for it, as you and I know, David, is China. China should be paying for this. And there's no response from the government on this. The only thing we're getting is, here's some more money. Well, lovely, thank you. That's what, we rely on you. We need your help in times of crisis. But you're going to have to start telling us about our financial situation going forward and how we're going to pay for all this. Because, like I say, we know damn well it's going to be the taxpayers going to foot the bill for this when it shouldn't be. It's not our fault. They should be going after China. They have legal routes to sue China, as the Henry Jackson Society did a brilliant study and showed them legal routes you can take to make China accountable for this. They're in breach of international health regulations, for example, and we could sue them, for want of a better word. I mean, sue isn't necessarily an appropriate word, but take action against them to reclaim the 350 billion plus that they owe us. And there's nothing from the government about this. So they're not telling us how they intend to get this country back on its feet or when. And
Yeah.
it's a difficult situation, and I've sympathized with them from day one. I really have, because no one expects this to come. But you're in government, you're in the top, highest office in the land. Step up and understand your responsibility and serve us. And that's not happening.
Yeah, you know, Anne-Marie, I actually sat in on a webinar held by a major financial institution yesterday. And they were saying that based on their best forecast for the rest of 2020, with the information we have now, the scale of this recession, it would be, it's not a question of going back to, you know, post-World War II or even going back to the Great Depression. They said that what we're talking is, Anne-Marie, going back to the 1700s, back to the time of England fighting the Spanish Wars, back to the time of the South Sea Bubble. The scale of collapse of the economy is equivalent to that last seen 300 years ago. And who would have thought, Anne-Marie, that it's going to be, it was a conservative government, allegedly, that's put us into this recession? Because, you know, it's their response to COVID that's caused, in my view, so much of the problems. I mean, what do you reckon to Boris's handling of it all?
I think in the beginning, I think it was looking like we were heading towards a herd immunity strategy. Because we were one of the last countries to lock down. I have a family in Ireland, for example, who told me, I can't believe you guys have not locked down yet. So I think maybe there was an intention to go with herd immunity. Perhaps he should have stuck with that, but he perhaps didn't want to be the sort of odd one out in Europe. People would have blamed him for every death if he had gone down an immunity road. And of course, we'll never know, because we can't go back in time and make a different decision. So we'll never know. But the whole thing has just transformed everything that we know and knew. And while there are worse, there could be, he could have been worse, he could be worse, he could be a lot better as well in reassurance. Every time we hear from him, it's more vague. It's more vagueness. I think I saw that old picture of Madonna with the hands up, but with Boris's face and vague written under it. Very funny. Has he handled it any worse than the rest of them? I don't know. Is it easy to handle a situation like this? No. And very, very difficult to say, well, in hindsight, you know, we should have done this, we should have done that. But he needs to handle our exit from it better. He needs to handle our economic situation better, because I don't think I've heard him talk about what our future economy is going to look like. And you know, like you say, David, we're looking at a recession not seen for 300 years. This spectacle in front of us, one would think, would have our politicians excited, you know, and not excited, but you understand, you know, animated, and they're not. Why aren't we talking about this? Why aren't they telling us what our situation is likely to be like and what they are going to do about it? We're at that stage now where we need to know. And of course, we're allowed to go back out now, which is nice. I went to and only in England, I believe. I think the other three countries are still locked down, which is bizarre. So it was nice today. I managed to go for a walk in the local country park today, which was lovely. So we're allowed back out. Things the traffic is back on the road, so it looks a bit more normal. But like I said at the start, to me, the economic collapse that we're facing is the big one. And we're not getting advice or reassurance or a plan from the government on this.
I think one of the things that concerns me the most, I don't know what you reckon, but the response from the government seems to be to splash as much cash as possible on this furlough scheme, which to my mind all it's doing is delaying the inevitable. And rather than have a furlough scheme, it seems to me it'd be far better to open up and let business back. You mentioned England. I live in one of the provinces here in Northern Ireland, where we're still under virtual house arrest, because I think we've had so far this week 12 deaths, Anne-Marie, 12 deaths, and the economy's closed essentially, and so much misery is being created. And you got to wonder, and I do, surely the politicians can see what you and I can see, don't you think? So why do they not seem to want to talk about it or do anything beyond just splashing more cash?
I don't know. Maybe they simply, I mean, I guess the simplest reason is they have no plan, and they can't tell us their plan if they haven't got one. I think they seem to be stumbling from one confusion to another from their point of view. They don't seem to know what they're doing. And if they can't tell us about their plan to get us out of this if they haven't got a plan. And I think that's the problem. I think it's really quite simple. They know what they can see it. Of course they can. They can see what's coming. But if they had a plan, I'm sure they would tell us, right? It is bad governance. It really is. We're facing an enormous, difficult time, which will last for years. And to have silence from them on it is shoddy, to put it politely.
Yeah. I think the other thing is, what's your view on the whole NHS situation? Because obviously, given I know your background and stuff, what's your thoughts on how the NHS has been put in a position, and we have the 8 o'clock clap on a Thursday night, all this stuff's going on. What do you reckon to what's happening in the NHS? What has happened? What will happen?
Well, the NHS has become an even more sacred cow than it already was. And I say that as an NHS supporter. I mean, it was already difficult to in any way criticize the NHS. And I am critical. I'm a supporter, but I'm critical. It's badly run. And I have a feeling that after we come out of this, we won't even be allowed to say that. It'll be a sort of the pointing and shouting witch at you for criticizing the NHS. But there's so much to criticize here. We have basically shut off services beyond coronavirus. It seems that nobody else is getting sick from anything or having any accidents or anything at all. It's all coronavirus. But we have hospital units opened up specifically for this, left unused. We have PPE crisis. Again, that's the fault. Globalism entirely to blame there. That we can't even provide our own medical produce. It's pathetic, really, and it's entirely globalism's fault. But while we have all of this, you have them dancing around, making videos, which must have, and someone, I didn't even think of this until someone pointed it out to me. They must have taken hours to rehearse these things.
Yeah.
We must have nothing at all to do. And yet there people are on a Thursday night out clapping for, why don't we clap the soldiers when they go away to war or when they come home from war? That's someone who really ought to be clapped. But we're clapping for people who are, I understand the sentiment behind the original thought. And if they were really on the front line, as we are told relentlessly, but I don't believe that they are, because the hospitals aren't being used. They're making videos. I'm sure some are working very hard. But this is one of the reasons I think that people are confused about what's going on, are turning to conspiracy theories. And I think there's a healthiness about conspiracy theories, because it signifies that we're not just going to swallow anything they tell us. But this is why, we have planes landing from Italy and China in the first few weeks of lockdown. We have illegal immigrants coming across the channel and not even across the channel, going into the channel, and the UK border force going out and getting them and bringing them to the UK. So the organisation charged with keeping illegal immigrants out of the country is going out and bringing illegal immigrants in. I mean, you can't make stuff up. But all of this is going on while we're told, while the police are on Twitter saying we'll be hiding in the shadows. Why aren't you hiding in the shadows on the beaches of Kent and removing these people? This is why people get so angry, and I'm getting angry about it now. This is why people get so angry. It makes no sense. You're locking us up, but you're letting immigrants run wild. And another thing that keeps coming up is this: ethnic minorities are more likely, or more detrimentally affected by this. We're going to investigate why. No, you're not. They're not going to investigate why. And if they do investigate why, we will never be told the actual answer. The answer, and we're not talking about British people here. I guarantee you we're talking about immigrant ghettos where people are not following social distance rules, mosques, various. This is why, and also, the British Medical Association gave us an example of ethnic minorities refusing to wear certain things, masks or whatever, because it interfered with the beard or the headgear. Now, I'm sorry, but we are going. this is not our fault. This is not our fault. But we will be told it is. This is what makes people angry, is this absurdity and this inconsistency. And we're watching all this, shaking our heads, thinking, well, what am I supposed to listen to? What am I supposed to believe? If it's really that serious, if I'm not allowed to go out, why are mosques filled? What's going on? And this is why people distrust, and they're right to distrust. But it's why people get confused, and it's why people, particularly after the nurses' videos, the nurses and the doctors dancing around, when they started going out on social media, I noticed a very, very clear and obvious increase in people walking around the streets when that happened. And I understood why, because people are thinking, well, I'm not sitting in here. Clearly, the NHS isn't in the trouble, and the lockdown was all about not overwhelming the NHS, wasn't it? So they're not overwhelmed, and of course, overwhelming the NHS is one of the 5 tests to getting this back. I wrote to the government, a fruitless endeavour as always. But writing to them to sort of publish to people what the 5 tests are. And one of them is, will the NHS be overwhelmed? Well, tell us, is it overwhelmed now? And if it is, why are they dancing around making well-rehearsed videos? So people are going crazy about this, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, the TikTok videos was a wonder to behold. And as you said, there were some good routines, actually. Just one problem. Anne-Marie. We don't pay them to do dance routines.
No.
And of course, you're quite right. It revealed one of the awful truths in all of this, namely that the hospitals were at best half empty. And of course, the other thing that I'm sure, like myself, you're concerned about is that a lot of people with other serious conditions. I mean, COVID is not the only form of very dangerous illness. People with cancer, people with cardiac, people suffering from lung conditions, all kinds of folk with serious issues were basically told to just stay away from the hospitals. Don't you think that was a criminal misjudgment at the very least?
Absolutely. And again, it's not easy to know what to do in these situations, but common sense should have told anyone not to send that message out. You do not tell a country not to turn up to hospitals. This is it's a death sentence for some, and they will pay heed to it because some people just want to behave well and want to contribute, and good for them. But this is a terribly, terribly irresponsible thing to do. And I remember that Matt Hancock came out probably only a week or so ago to say to people, you need to go to hospitals if you're sick. Wait, you haven't? Why didn't you tell us that weeks ago? And, there are people with real sicknesses like cancer who are not being treated. I spoke to someone again today who has a friend with cancer who's appointments have been cancelled for months, and they have cancer. This is not a cold. We're talking about serious illness here. And people are being neglected and abandoned. And it seems to me a hugely, terribly irresponsible thing to do. And actually, there could well be, after this, some lawsuits against the government for it. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be at all surprised.
I wouldn't blame anybody, Anne-Marie, who maybe could lose family members as a result of this. So it's I think as you say, I agree with you that I would not have wanted to have been prime minister and face this particular dilemma, because it's one of these ones where you don't win, you can't win whatever you do. But but again, I do agree with you. When Boris followed the herd immunity thing at the beginning, I supported that because I thought that was okay. He then was panicked into going down this lockdown route by the inimitable Professor Ferguson at the Imperial College, and and indeed not just he, but across in the States and around a lot of the world, that Imperial College model influenced so much. But one of the things that I think, and I want to chat to you about this, is, that Imperial College model got us into lockdown. How do you think we'll ever get out of not just lockdown, Anne-Marie, but social distancing? How are we going to ever get out of that? Because some people now seem to want it. They don't want to go close, which I think is awful, by the way, because us human beings, we want to be together. It's just normal. So how do you think we're going to get out of it?
Do you know, David, I think in history books in years to come, And I this is on my mind purely because I'm writing my book and I'm reading a lot of history now. In years to come, this could well be taught as a absolute turning point, changing of human behavior, changing our social behavior, changing our economic behavior. I think, for example, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get handshaking back. I'm not sure how long it will be before we shake hands, kiss, hug, even sit next to each other at work anymore. I can't, the idea of going into a theatre in London with these small cramped seats, I think it's a long way off. If we ever get it back at all, we may be looking at a permanent readjustment of culture, of business, of human interaction. And we certainly won't get back all the freedoms that have been taken away from us. I've got no doubt about that at all. And we're very adaptable, so we'll accept all of this. Just as we've accepted, humans accept. That's what we do. It's actually it's our brain trying to protect us by making us adapt to things so that we don't, suffering and struggling the whole time. But it has its downside, and people will accept their liberties being taken away in order to be made to feel safer. So I think post this, I don't think we're ever going back to normal. I honestly don't, and I don't think that's gloom. I don't think some things may well improve. I think, for example, GP appointments online may become a thing, and I see nothing wrong with that. Initial consultations that are happening online, I think that could actually be quite a money saver for the NHS. A lot of people will shop online. A lot of people who had never shopped online before have been forced to shop online now, see how easy and convenient it is, and the shopping online will hugely increase or stay. I'm sure it has increased, but stay that way, I suspect. People going to work. Will we all go to work if people can work if people can work from home? I suspect a lot more people will be working from home. Because now they know they can. So this will have an impact on childcare, for example. There won't be as many kids in childcare. I think, I agree with you. I think it's sad. I like human interaction. I'm quite, I like my personal space, but I'm quite, I don't like the idea of us being separated and sitting a certain amount apart. And I like to shake hands. I like a handshake. A handshake tells you a lot about a person.
It does,
I pay a lot of attention to handshakes, so I like a handshake. But all over Europe, the Dutch, for example, when I lived in Holland, they kiss 3 times when they meet. It's standard. And in some European countries, they kiss 4 times. I don't know if that's ever going to come back. I think what's increased in us is this, that we see each other almost as a danger now. We're getting used to being separated. We're getting used to seeing people wearing masks in supermarkets, and we're getting used to hand sanitizer on the way into the supermarket and what have you. I guess paranoia, fear of disease, fear of each other, fear of getting close to each other. We may never go fully back from that. And I think that is a great shame. But I genuinely do. I think in years to come, people, and not all change, change is not necessarily bad. Some good changes. As I say, I think the NHS, and we could save some money with online work. But I do think that in years to come, this will be a pivotal point in changing our social how we act socially, how we act economically, and with our interaction with each other. I think it will change it fundamentally, and I'm not over the moon about that.
I think some of the little cruelties of this past couple of months, Anne-Marie, particularly offend me. I'm aware of people who have lost loved ones, and they can't get to a funeral. Funerals in many instances are having to be done, remotely. And I just think that, and other people, young people maybe wanting to get married, and that's all have to be shuffled, and their plans have been wrecked and all kinds of stuff. And I just think there's a cruelty to this that I never seen coming anyway. I never would have imagined we'd have reached the point. I mean, I said it the other night in a broadcast, we've reached actually in 2020, Anne-Marie, we've reached 1984 and Animal Farm at the same time, actually. We've actually doubled up on Orwell. But I'll tell you what, here's the thing, because earlier on, you mentioned rightly so, and I know for Britain's talked about this, China. and we mustn't lose track of China. I fundamentally blame China for much of certainly the situation that we face.
Yeah.
And, you know, but yet the UK government seems to want to suck up to them and to continue to let them get into 5G, build a nuclear power plant. You know, doesn't the government, has the government been based, are they so scared of China and Chinese money is so important that they'll just go along with it, do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think it's both. It's both that they're scared of them, and the money is. It's a bit like Islam. They're scared of it, and there's too much Muslim money in this country. You know, China own. This is what globalism, economic globalism, has actually done. It has made sure that so much of our real estate no longer belongs to anyone with any connection to this country. And that's a huge problem. So when another country owns so much in this country, the politicians will run around them, will pander to them, and we've got, you know, I don't know what do you do about people who already own things? But look, stand up to them, and if they don't like it, they can go and they can sell their whatever it is they own, and they can go and get the hell out. Why are we always bowing down to foreign countries? Why is that? Why is it? Is it that we are fundamentally governed by cowards? Is it, or what is it? What is it? Is it fear? Is it money? Is it both? Or is it just a complete lack of principle? Do they actually care about this country? Do they care about its future? I'm not convinced remotely that they do. I think they care about the next election and keeping their seat.
Yeah.
That's all. And being nice to China helps with that, because they're not going to rock the boat. No one's going to rock the boat. Donald Trump will rock the boat, which is
he will.
An asset to the world at the moment. But he stands alone among Western leaders. All the rest. And you know what I think the main problem is? One of the main problems is the media, David, which you love as much as I do, I know. Yeah. And I think it was also part of the reason why Boris gave up on herd immunity and went with lockdown, was the media. The media were, you know, what are they doing? Why aren't we doing anything? They care more about money than they do about life. This sort of stuff was getting thrown at Boris. And it's the same thing with China. The Western media has gone out of its way to defend China. And the reason for that is because China threatens the dominance of the United States. It is nipping at America's heels now to become the global superpower, and I certainly don't want to see that happen. If we have a global superpower, and we do, I want it to be America, not China. Now, China is nipping at America's heels. The left hates America because it's capitalist. It's got a constitution that guarantees liberties, all the things that left wingers hate. By contrast, China is a left-winger's dream. It's a tyrannical, totalitarian nation, open prison with torture chambers all over it. That's the left-wing dream. And they want China to lead the world and not America. They want communists to lead the world and not Democrats. And it suits them perfectly well to see China nipping at America's heels. And they seem to want this. So no one, the WHO, no criticism of China either. They helped China cover this thing up. They may have done it inadvertently, but they helped China by putting out messages that this thing didn't transmit from human to human, because China told them that. China lied to them during the 2008. Was it 2003? The SARS virus. That was China too. And China lied then as well. And the WHO told China off for lying then as well. And here we are, 17 years later, and the WHO has learned nothing, because it's still taking China's word and putting the whole world at risk of economic catastrophe based on the word of China, who they knew would lie and would happily lie about this. So the WHO still not blaming China, UN still not blaming China. You know, it's China's fault, and the whole globalist, internationalist elite wants America taken down. China can do it, so they're on China's side. That is absolutely, everything is always more complicated than that. But to me, that's at the heart of this, is the left wants America gone and China is here to get rid of America's dominance. And that suits them fine.
I think, Anne-Marie, I would probably also, just to add to that, I think it's particularly President Trump that they want taken down. If if he's replaced by Biden or some other Democrat who'll also pay lip service to America, but really is a globalist, then they absolutely achieve their aim. But on the media, because it's another really good point you made. The behaviour of the British media in particular, the BBC, Sky, Channel 4, all these patsies, has just been appalling from as I've watched it, asking stupid gotcha questions of the government. I mean, actually, I felt Boris got a little bit of sympathy from me because he's having to put up with these people who ask the most superficial gotcha questions with no real. When did you ever hear a question asked about China by any British journalist? Just not one.
Very good point. Very good point. Yeah, they do ask inane, nothing questions, like you say, gotcha questions.
Yeah.
And like you, I do sympathise with Boris. I mean, you said, no matter what you do, someone will complain. I can tell you, that's politics.
Yeah.
No matter what I do, someone complains about it every time. But in this kind of situation, absolutely, it would be amplified by a million. But you're right. We do have a terrible press, David. I love this country with everything, every ounce of my soul. But my word, our press is notorious all over the world, and with good reason. We have a shocking, for whatever reason, our media is absolutely shocking. And the BBC used to be the most trusted media organization in the world, and it had standards, and now it is a international joke. And that to me is quite a shame, actually, because that's a representation of the country. And it's behaving appallingly, and has behaved appallingly for years now. And, mentioning Trump, you might have seen what they did with this video where he did this press conference and he asked about bleach or, somebody did a great video, and I can't remember his name. I've seen a few videos of his. He's a YouTuber. He's quite good, but he did a forensic video showing what the BBC had done, how they had edited this press conference from Trump, and how it really went down. I mean, it's absolutely criminal what the BBC will do. But you're right, they do. They want to bring down America, certainly, but 100 times more so, they want to bring down Trump's America.
But does that not also illustrate, Anne-Marie, the insanity of the left? Because whilst they might bitch about America, if China becomes the global superpower, which, as you rightly said, it absolutely aims to be by 2040, I think, then the Chinese, look how the Chinese treat minorities. Look about the 1 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps in China. The left don't seem too bothered about that for some reason. And I think that reason is they're not bothered. They just want, as you suggest, the US hegemony taken down. Absolutely. And if China fills it, which is China wants to, so be it. And China is, frankly, to paraphrase, I think it was, who was it said? Was it Reagan or Reagan about the Soviet Union? I see China, the Chinese Communist Party, as the evil empire.
I agree with you, and I've always had a negative view of China, actually, and I think it's been building up quietly, to become all of a sudden this challenger to America, and it's done it. It built itself into a massive economy, nice and quietly. It's quietly also buying up shares of Western countries. It's making a fortune out of this, because not only did it send us the disease, but it sent us, sadly, and again, another mark of inept governance, it sent us equipment, faulty equipment, to deal with the disease they'd sent us. So they're making a fortune out of this. It's basically, China effectively manufactures everything. So if we have a crisis and we need products, who's going to manufacture it? China. So it almost as if whatever catastrophe we have, China's going to make some money out of it. And I think the coronavirus actually has sped up China's race to world number one. It's America's economy has been badly hit by this. China is making the absolute most of it, and I think it will speed up their trajectory towards number one.
I agree, and you know, a cynical person might just say, Anne-Marie, it's quite a coincidence that this virus should escape from a lab in Wuhan, travel its way around the world, wreck all the other global economies. China gets away with relatively few deaths, although you can't believe a word that they say in terms of, when no one believes what they say.
They wouldn't care either. I mean, if died, they wouldn't care.
Absolutely right. Yeah. And as you say, that's the benefit of being a tyrannical, authoritarian horror state, which the Chinese Communist Party are. But it just strikes me that so far in 2020, we've seen things change. You said it earlier, Anne-Marie, in ways that will mean things are changing forever. Some of the changes mightn't be bad. I completely agree with you. Some things will be good, but freedom, which is maybe the most precious thing we have, is never been more imperiled by our own government, not least. And that's what angers me. The fact that I see, people are now giving thanks here in Northern Ireland. Guess what? Next week, the garden centres are open. So you can go to your garden centre. Well, whoop-dee. But go and visit.
What I thought, God.
Oh, God, Anne-Marie.
So popular all of a sudden.
Yeah, but try and visit my parents are both passed on, Anne-Marie, but if you want to go and visit your parents, you can't do that. The law says you mustn't visit the two of if you have mum and dad at the same time. You only can visit one, but you can visit a group of 5 other people and strangers. I was talking to someone who was saying that she couldn't visit her mother, but if her mother put her house up for sale, she could go and visit her mother with a for sale sign on her drive, because the government allows that. So this thing is just so incredible what we are sort of facing, and where it all ends, I don't know, but I think they definitely want Trump taken down. That establishes the globalist order, which they want. Yeah. And I guess people like you and me, and I'm sure many people, sensible people on this stream, we don't want that. We do not want globalism. I would have thought, Anne-Marie, that, the whole globalist supply chain, you touched on the fact that China makes everything, which they do because we've let them. Yeah. I would have thought one of the things that Britain should be doing is, let's bring the supply chain home. Let's buy British. Let's make British. Let's support British. And yet I don't get an awful lot of sense of that from government. I mean, what do you think about that?
No, not at all. And they ought to be talking about this. This is yet another failure of leadership in this. I think there are several things we need to do. We need to cut back on the amount of what I call tat in our lives. So let me give you an example. Look at this. This is a power pack, right? It is, of course, made in China. Now, I've never used this, and I have loads of things around my house like this, and I think everyone else does as well. We need to stop consuming unnecessarily, because most of it comes from China. We need our essentials produced here. We certainly need major things produced here. Our military equipment, for example, should be produced here. Our ships should be produced here. Our technology should be produced here. Major things like that need to be produced here. But I would also suggest our emergency equipment ought to be produced here. And any emergency equipment we do make seems to be shipped abroad. So, for example, ventilators. We had a shortage of ventilators in the health service. The British companies that produce ventilators weren't making them, this blew me away, weren't making them so that they met with NHS specifications. And so clearly they're making them for export then. So we have ventilators made in Britain for export. Meanwhile, we're importing ventilators which don't work. We weren't able to use them. I heard one doctor quoted saying these things are more likely to kill patients than save them. So what's going on? Why aren't our own producers producing machines that do match with NHS specifications, or better yet, change the NHS specifications? This is a child would know that this is crazy. This is crazy. So, we don't have ventilators to save our own people. We're shipping them off. And then importing different ones which don't work. There's no logic to this whatsoever. So we ought to be self-sufficient, not entirely. We don't have to make everything. We can move our production out of China. There are other countries even in that region which can produce cheap things cheaply. It doesn't have to be China, but for essentials, for our for any medical care, we need to make our own. For our military, we need to make our own. We need to supply our own food, which largely we do, but we need to do that. We need to be ready to stand on our own without any help. And this isn't about, having no friends in the world. I want us to have friends in the world. That's not what it's about. You have friends. You are also self-sufficient. You also, this world, it's not an easy world. You've got to be able to stand up on your own and make sure you are able and ready, if you need to stand on your own. And this country is not able to stand on its own, to the point where we can't even provide ventilators in our own hospitals at a time of national crisis. That's where we are, and globalism got us there.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
No sense to it at all.
Yeah, and yet the globalists have been very clever in this last sort of number of weeks or whatever to try and shift it so that that's not really talked about. And instead, again, this is my sympathy with Boris. It's picking holes with how, as it were, the local domestic governments have handled the things. But the reality is, you're quite right, Anne-Marie, the globalist chains, the globalist approach, another thing to touch on, the open borders. So I know, I think I chatted to you about this before, but one of the things that we'd covered in alt news media, oh God, it seems ages ago now, was that one of the reasons, as you know, Italy suffered so much was that Northern Italy in particular bought over the textile factories by Chinese, 100,000 workers from Wuhan. Guess what? You get a lot of COVID. Same in Spain, same in Barcelona, same in Madrid. Open borders have been demonstrated to be lethal, and yet, is there any evidence that the UK is even remotely interested in taking control of ours? I see none. Do you?
No, there's a lot of talk. But, you can talk all you like. It's easy for Priti Patel, for example, to stand up and make a speech. It's even easy she did introduce good legislation. Whether it'll be enforced, I don't know. But this is what they do. They get up and they make speeches and they sound all tough and they sound like they're on your side. And then they do nothing to change things. And, during this, as I said a while ago, we've had immigrants coming over across the channel and being collected. That's how I know what the government's intentions are. Not the speech. You can make the big rousing speech. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. If you're letting them come in onto Kent's speeches, this speech means nothing at all. You can save your breath with your speech. This speech means nothing unless you are stopping people from coming across the channel, and they're not stopping people. And it would take one simple move, David, to stop people coming across that channel. And you know what that move is? Send them home. Send them home and they will stop coming. You haven't done anything horrific. You're just sending them back to their own country. Well, it's not a crime against humanity, or it's you're just sending them back to their own country. Send them home, and they will stop coming. Simple. Again, a child would know this, and yet we get all the rhetoric from the Tories. I mean, Labour, of course, are loony left, but you're getting all this patriotic rhetoric and tough talk from the Tories, and nothing changes. They've been in government since 2010. Nothing has changed. Nothing at all. All the political correctness has gotten worse. The insanity in our society, the trans thing, and all this madness has all just gotten worse. The hate speech and all this, it's all gotten worse under the Tories. So what? It's all hot air.
I agree with you. I think Priti Patel has been a massive disappointment. But then again, as you say, it's the difference between rhetoric and action, isn't it? It's always that difference. And if you judge the Conservatives on their action, not the rhetoric, that's where all the question marks have to be asked. But I mean, I found it interesting during the 6 weeks of lockdown, when Italy and Spain and whatnot were grievously affected by COVID. I think we had 18 million people, Anne-Marie, came through our airports, no checks, strolling into the UK. And then people wonder why the UK has got some very large number of deaths. Well, if you let the carriers in, what do you expect? So we let the legal people in with infection, and then we let the illegals in. Welcome them with as someone pointed out there, a British border force is more essentially British ferry, isn't it? It's a ferry to welfare without end. So so again, I think this has exposed, Anne-Marie, so many of the stuff that you've talked about, and I think others have talked about, I've chatted about too, so many of the problems. And maybe one of the good things is it'll bring them into crystal clear relief, so that when we talk about these things, it's all there, people, folks. It's right in front of your noses, So, globalism is a disaster. Open borders is a disaster. And if we can't bring back our sovereignty, then, I'm not sure what the point of leaving the EU actually is if we don't actually then exercise that right as a free nation to say, right, you're not coming in, as you say, bye-bye, turn the boats around to France or beyond. I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, look, for years, actually, the government have been blaming mass immigration on the European Union, and it wasn't the European Union's fault. There is more, and has been for a long, long time, more immigration into this country from outside the EU than from inside the EU. Now, two things. One, that's the immigration people are most worried about, is the stuff from outside the EU, because you have these, cultural practices, and this is not us. This is not us. And it alarms people, and it frightens people. Clothes and it's not us. So this is the immigration that people are most worried about. But it's also the immigration that the government has had control over all this time. The EU